Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome to another video. Today we'll be talking about the real reason why Spawn wasn't included in Injustice 2, and more specifically Fighter Pack 3. Now before we actually get onto it, I'm going to give you guys a quick breakdown and history of Spawn since his creation in the early 90s. Now Spawn was created in a very strange time in comic book history, where stuff had to be dark, grim, and quite edgy to be honest. And I don't just mean character design wise. The grim and dark aesthetic that superhero comics were taking on were very refreshing to readers' eyes, and the much more tonally dark and somewhat down-to-earth characters helped make a series special, and Spawn was made at just the right time in 1992 where this trend was at an all-time high. Now what also helped this series is the artist and creator Todd McFarlane, who developed a somewhat cult-like status due to his very unique art style and the popularity and success he had whilst making Spider-Man comics for Marvel. So eventually when he left and became a founder of Image Comics, Todd knew that he needed to create something that would embody the most popular trends within comics at the time, and thus this led up to the creation of Spawn, with the first issue being a smash hit. With Todd's iconic art style and a very unique and intriguing protagonist, it was a recipe for success, and really from that point onwards he was propelled into pop culture, becoming arguably the face of Image Comics and being successful enough to break out into different forms of media. But unfortunately they were approached with very little success, especially after the release of the 1997 Spawn film, which received very negative reviews. From that point onwards, the success that Spawn once had started to dwindle, and this was also because the comic book industry started to kind of stray away from its dark and edgy era. So unfortunately because of this, Spawn's popularity started to dwindle, but this didn't really affect their comic book sales, as the quality of the material they were putting out was at a high enough standard that it kept readers intrigued. That's at least up until 2002, where the writer and creator Todd McFarlane got into a legal dispute with another comic book artist, Neil Gaiman, as they were legally fighting over ownership of a few particular characters. Now it doesn't stop there, as he was having another legal dispute with a hockey player known as Tony Twist. Now the Tony Twist case was solved in a few years, but the Neil Gaiman case lasted for about 10 long years, and ultimately because of this, Spawn's writing did suffer. So for a very long amount of time, the Spawn comic book run would be criticized by longtime fans, with some hardcore fans sticking it out and some dropping the comic book line altogether. So after the court case was over, Todd became a lot more protective with his own properties, and since Spawn was more or less his baby, he ultimately wanted to do what he deemed best for the character and his future. But now let's get on to Injustice 2 and why Spawn wasn't actually included in it. Now for the longest amount of time, people were speculating that this character would be in here, and the rumor mill first started when Ed Boon tweeted out this picture to tease and hype up fans for what they could possibly see here. But is this actually possible? As I did bring up earlier, and how Todd McFarlane wanted to be quite protective of his own material. Well, in an interview he had back in February of 2015, he mentions the following about the ownership of Spawn.
So you mentioned that you have a short deal as far as when I mentioned Mortal Kombat, so can you tell us more about what does that mean?
That means that they have access to be able to use the character in a couple of their games if they want to. Again, it's up to their discretion. So I gave them a window of time, and so I'll just leave it to them to be able to do what it is that they want. So eventually they'll phone me and they go, hey, we want to use them here. Is that okay? Well, technically it's okay because we've already said yes. They just are just letting us know.
So from what we can tell here is that WB have the ability to in fact use Spawn within any of their games, regardless of whether or not they get Todd McFarlane's seal of approval. But of course, as he has mentioned, there is a time window for them to do this. Now that isn't the most important part of this interview. You see, Todd was asked by the interviewer, would Spawn appear within Injustice 2? And he said the following.
Now we did an article of him being in Injustice. Will we see him in Injustice 2?
No.
Now 2 years is a long amount of time, so a lot can change and a lot can happen, but it does seem that up to this day, that Spawn won't be in Injustice 2, because either one of two things have happened here. The time window from when they can actually use him has most likely closed, or Todd has in fact told them not to, but to use him later down the line in Mortal Kombat 11 after he re-establishes the Spawn brand, because Spawn as of right now is nowhere near as popular as he used to be in the 90s. Now the one key thing we need to take into account here is what Todd wants to do with the property. And Todd has been saying for the last 10 years that he wants a Spawn movie to be made. You see, Todd has been working on a script ever since 2007. He's gone through multiple drafts and has really been pushing for it to be made. It's only up until San Diego Comic-Con of this year where he finally announced that it would be happening and it would be made by Blumhouse Production, the production studio that worked on films such as Insidious and Get Out. So the studio has definitely earned a reputation of making good horror film, which is exactly what Todd McFarlane has been looking for. You see, in this age of comic book movies, a lot of them can come across as quite linear due to the fact that a lot of them do follow the PG-13 rating. Todd wants to turn the genre upside down on its head and create a horror-based-esque superhero film, which has somewhat been quite unheard of in the last decade or so, since they do follow the PG-13 rating. But in conclusion, what have we learned here? Well, Todd McFarlane clearly wants to build up his brand once again, but he only wants to do this by establishing his fan base through making a Spawn horror film. Todd does seem to have his heart set on doing this before he does anything else, as it has been a project he has been working on for the last 10 years. And it's no secret that NRS shipped a lot of the horror-esque characters into Mortal Kombat games. So with Todd saying no to Injustice, it leaves Mortal Kombat with a much higher chance of something like this happening. But yeah, that's kind of it for this video, guys. Hopefully it's given you a bit more insight on some of the politics that happen behind the video game. Because as much as many people would love to see Spawn actually be in Injustice 2, it all comes down to licensing and really who gives the character the thumbs up. Hopefully this has completely debunked the Spawn rumor, because I really do feel sorry for fans who have been holding him as like their #1 choice to be in a fighter pack, because people were really looking forward to his possible reveal. But yeah, that's it for this video. Please do share it around, as it will be a great way of letting people know why he wasn't involved in Injustice 2. Now, if possible, guys, let's try getting this video to about 500 likes. It's a great way of supporting this channel, as YouTube's ad system is broken as hell. So by giving it a thumbs up, it helps out a ton. And if you'd like to go that extra step, we also have a Patreon set up. A link for that will be down in the description below. Anyway, guys, as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you all next time.